They say history is written by the victors, but what if the truth was buried with the fallen? Every secret leaves a trace, if you know where to look. This is The Broken Truth, decoding history, one broadcast at a time. The Broken Truth podcast, where history meets conspiracy. Every case tells a story, every story hides a lie. Before we get started with today's episode, I just want to say thank you. We are over 700 followers on Spotify. We're approaching 400 5-star reviews on Spotify as well. So make sure you follow us on Spotify. Leave us a 5-star review to help this algorithm present this content to more people like you. And this is going to be a little bit different of an episode. This is going to be not a spin-off of season 2, but just an additional content to kind of break up the historical grounded evidence. I'm really interested in the concept of philosophy. So I want to introduce you guys to some various topics that are very deep in terms of our world and the way our society is functioning. So we'll get started with this episode. Every couple of episodes, I'm going to drop something very similar to this. But once again, make sure you're following us on Spotify. If you want any bonus content, check the link in our description for our Patreon. Only $1 a month to support the show, and you get an additional bonus episode with every public episode released. We drop 3 public episodes every week. Sunday, Tuesday and Thursday, we drop our Bible study on Saturday, and we drop a media brief, kind of like a global news intelligence brief every Friday. So stay tuned for more content, and we'll get on with the episode. There's a feeling you know it intimately. It is likely sitting in the room with you right now, like a ghost that refuses to haunt you, but refuses to leave. It usually arrives in the quiet moments, the transitional spaces of your life. It finds you when you're waiting for a train. It finds you when you are standing in line for coffee. It finds you most aggressively late at night, when the house is dark and the world has theoretically gone to sleep. It is a specific kind of heaviness. It settles behind the eyes. It is a subtle, vibrating tension in the chest. It is the sensation of having consumed everything, yet having digested nothing. You look at the clock, you see the numbers, and they shock you. You realize that 40 minutes have passed, maybe an hour, maybe 2. You've been sitting in the same position, your neck bent, your hand holding a small, glowing rectangle of glass and lithium. You try to recall what you've done in those 2 hours. You try to reconstruct the sequence of events. You know, intellectually, that you were looking at things. There were images, there were headlines, there were flashes of color, a video of a stranger baking bread, a fragment of a political argument about a war 3,000 miles away, a photograph of an ex-lover from a decade ago, an advertisement for a pair of boots you do not need and will never buy. You saw all of it. Your eyes tracked the movement. Your brain registered the light. But if I asked you, right now, to describe with any real clarity a single thing you just learned, if I asked you to tell me what mattered in that hour, you'd probably struggle. You would grasp at the memory, and you would find it turning to smoke in your hands. The memory is gone, but the after effect remains. You feel a low-grade anxiety, a sense of displacement. You feel as though you have been running a marathon, but you haven't moved an inch from your sofa. You feel full, bloated with information, but you are spiritually starving. You are exhausted, but you cannot sleep. We have many names for this condition. We call it wasting time. We call it doom scrolling. We call it zoning out. We treat it with a strange mix of humor and self-loathing. We joke about our screen time reports. We tell ourselves we are lazy. We tell ourselves we lack discipline. We download applications to track our usage, trying to treat the symptom with the same machine that caused the disease. We view this state as a personal failure, a flaw in our character. But I want you to pause. I want you to suspend that judgment for a moment. What if that feeling, that exhaustion, that fragmentation, that subtle separation from your own life is not a bug? What if it is not a mistake? What if it is not a failure of your willpower? What if it is a product? What if the confusion you feel is the intended result of a system designed to produce exactly that state of mind? Historically, history is usually taught to us as a series of loud, visible conflicts. We learn about wars over land. We learn about conquerors who wanted territory, who wanted gold, and who wanted oil. We understand conquest as a physical act. It involves soldiers, it involves borders, it involves the physical subjugation of people. But we have entered a new epoch of human history. The terrain has shifted. The most valuable resource in the world today is not buried in the ground. It is not flowing through a pipeline. It is not stacked in the vaults of a central bank. The most valuable resource in the world is where your eyes are looking right now. It is your attention. And because it is valuable, it is being mined. Because it is powerful, it is being captured. We are living through a conquest, but there are no soldiers in the streets. There are no checkpoints. There is no curfew. The conquest is seamless. It is invisible. It is frictionless. It feels like entertainment. It feels like connection. It feels like convenience. But if you look closely, if you can find a moment of silence long enough to truly look, you will see the bars. The question we must ask ourselves tonight is not whether we are distracted. That question is too small. That question assumes this is an accident. The question is, are we being conquered? And if we lose the ability to direct our own awareness, if we lose the capacity to choose what we think about, do we lose the only thing that actually makes us human? Welcome to the deep end. Welcome back to the Broken Truth Podcast. I'm your host, Garrett. We are here to talk about the war on awareness. To understand this war, we have to strip away the trivial ways we usually talk about distraction. In our culture, we treat distraction as a nuisance. It is the fly buzzing in the room while we try to finish a report. It is the vibration in the pocket that interrupts a dinner conversation. Quite frankly, probably a vibration you feel that is just your subconscious mind reminding you of your phone vibrating, when in reality, and you pick it up, there's no notification there. We view it as a productivity problem. We read books on how to focus better so we can get a promotion, or finish our novel, or be more present for our children. But this perspective is too narrow. It misses the magnitude of what is happening. Distraction, in its modern industrialized algorithmic form, is not just a nuance. It is a systematic dismantling of the individual's ability to command their own mind. The thesis of this conversation is simple, though the implications are not. The thesis is that awareness is humanity's most dangerous asset. It is the root of all creativity, all rebellion, all love, and all deep understanding. Consequently, the suppression of awareness, the fracturing of attention, is the most effective control mechanism ever created. This is not a conspiracy theory. It does not require a secret room of men smoking cigars and plotting the downfall of civilization. It does not require malice. It only requires a business model. It only requires an economic system that prioritizes engagement over well-being and a technological infrastructure fast enough to exploit the biological vulnerabilities of the human brain. We are going to walk through the architecture of this cage. We will look at how awareness works, why it threatens power, and how the mechanisms of distraction have evolved from bread and circuses into algorithmic precision weapons. We will look at what this constant noise is doing to our psychology, our politics, and our souls. This is an invisible war. It is voluntary. We carry the weapons in our pockets. We invite the conquerors into our beds. And because it is invisible, it is nearly impossible to fight. But the first step in any revolution is simply to notice that you are not free. Consider the nature of freedom. We usually define freedom as the ability to do what we want, the ability to move, the ability to speak, to buy, to vote. But there is a deeper freedom, a foundational freedom upon which all others rest. It is the freedom to direct your consciousness. If you are free to move, but you cannot decide where to walk because your mind is being pulled by invisible strings, are you really free? If you're free to speak, but your thoughts are merely echoes of the last 3 headlines you read, is it really your voice? We are living in a time where the external world has declared war on the internal world. The noise is constant, the signal is buried, and the casualty is the self. You might think this is an exaggeration. You might think, I can put the phone down whenever I want. But can you? When was the last time you sat in a room alone with no device, no book, no music, and just existed for 30 minutes? When was the last time you stood in a line and didn't instinctively reach in your pocket? When was the last time you sat down, watched a sunset without calculating how it would look as a photograph? We have merged with the mechanism of our own distraction. We have become symbiotic with the very thing that is eating us. And the scary part is not that the technology is evil. The scary part is that it is effective. It gives us exactly what we think we want, in exactly the dosage we crave. At exactly the moment we feel a twinge of boredom or sadness, it is the perfect drug because it doesn't just numb the pain, it replaces the pain with a simulation of pleasure. But simulations are not real, and eventually, the dreamer has to wake up. Let's begin by defining our terms. Words are the tools we use to dismantle the cage, so we must be precise with them. When I use the word awareness, I'm not talking about mindfulness in the corporate sense. I'm not talking about a relaxation technique or a way to be more productive at work. I'm not talking about the watered down, commodified version of Eastern spirituality that is sold to us as a lifestyle brand. I'm talking about something primal. I'm talking about the fundamental capacity to perceive reality as it is, rather than as we are told it is. Awareness is the synthesis of perception, pattern recognition, memory, and attention. It is the ability to hold a thought in your mind, examine it, turn it over, and decide whether it is true. It is the ability to feel a sensation, anger, desire, fear, and create a gap between that feeling and your reaction to it. This gap is everything. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, famously argued that between stimulus and response, there's a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Awareness is that space. Without awareness, there is no gap. There's only stimulus and immediate automatic reflex. Without awareness, you are not a protagonist in your own life. You're a bundle of nerves reacting to inputs. You're a biological machine that can be programmed. If you're angry, you shout. If you're hungry, you eat. If you're bored, you scroll. There is no pause. There is no executive function. There's only the tyranny of the impulse. This is why every major spiritual, philosophical, and revolutionary movement in human history began with a call to attention. They did not begin with a call to arms. They began with a call to wake up. Look at the Stoics of ancient Rome, thinkers like Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca. They lived in times of chaos, tyranny, and plague, and yet they built an entire philosophy on the discipline and ascent, the refusal to accept first impressions without scrutiny. They argued that the only thing a human being truly owns is their attention. Your body can be chained, your property can be seized, your reputation can be ruined, but your mind, the ability to choose what you focus on, that is the fortress. That is the citadel that cannot be taken, only surrendered. Epictetus said, "You become what you give your attention to. If you give your attention to triviality, you become trivial. If you give your attention to fear, you become fearful. If you give your attention to wisdom, you become wise." Move forward to the dawn of Western philosophy, Plato's allegory of the cave. It is the foundational myth of our intellectual history. What is it about? It is a story about the violence of awareness. The prisoners are chained in the dark, watching shadows on the wall. They believe the shadows are reality. Then they name the shadows. They build a culture around the shadows. The process of liberation begins when one prisoner turns his head. That turning is the act of awareness. It is the rejection of the stimulation. But notice what happened next. It hurts. The fire blinds him. The ascent out of the cave is painful. The sunlight is overwhelming. His fellow prisoners do not congratulate him. They think he is insane. They want to kill him for disturbing their peace. Awareness is not comfortable. Seeing the world clearly is often terrifying. It means seeing your own flaws. It means seeing the cracks in your society. It means seeing the morality of the people you love. This is why distraction is so seductive. Distraction is the promise that you never have to turn your head. Distraction is the promise that you can watch the shadows forever and never have to face the fire. But the cost of that comfort is your reality. The cost is your agency. In Eastern philosophy, particularly in Buddhism, the root of suffering is often described as avidya, ignorance, or a lack of seeing clearly. The antidote is not happiness. The antidote is waking up. It is vipassana, insight into the nature of reality. It is the rigorous, disciplined training of the mind to stay present, to not be swept away by the river of thought and emotion. Why does this matter in the context of the modern world? Why does a tech company in Silicon Valley care about your spiritual state? They don't, but they care about your behavior. And the self-awareness is the ultimate threat to centralized power. A person who can pay attention is a person who can see contradictions. A person who can focus is a person who can plan. A person who owns their own mind cannot be easily stampeded by fear or seduced by empty promises. Think about the requirements of a totalitarian state, or a manipulative corporation, or a corrupt political movement. What is the ideal subject? The ideal subject is reactive. They are fearful. They are unable to sustain a complex thought for more than a few minutes. They live entirely in the present moment, not in the Zen sense of presence, but in the amnesiac sense. They have no memory of the past, so they cannot see how history is being rewritten. They have no vision of the future, so they cannot imagine a better world. They feel only the immediate pressure of the now. Awareness allows us to connect the dots. It allows us to see that the anger we feel at our neighbor might be manufactured by a news algorithm designed to increase engagement. It allows us to see that the product we are buying is not solving our problem, but perpetuating it. It allows us to step back from the cliff edge of panic. Awareness is the prerequisite for agency. If you cannot focus, you cannot choose. And if you cannot choose, you are not free. We often talk about the attention economy, but that term is too sterile. It sounds like a fair exchange. You give attention, you get content. But an economy implies a trade between rational actors. What is happening now is not a trade, it is an extraction. It's a fracking. They are pumping high-pressure fluid, fear, outrage, dopamine, into the bedrock of your psyche to shatter the shale and extract the gas. The gas is your time, the gas is your data, and just like fracking, the process leaves the landscape unstable. It poisons the groundwater, it causes earthquakes in the soul. The war on awareness is a war for the territory of your mind, and the first step in winning that war is to realize that the territory is worth fighting for. How did we get here? It is easy to look at the smartphone in your hand and blame it for everything. It is a convenient scapegoat. But the war on awareness did not begin with the iPhone. It did not begin with the internet. It did not even begin with the television. The strategic use of distraction is as old as civilization itself. It is a fundamental technology of rule. If you want to understand the modern feed, you have to go back to the ancient stadium. You have to go back to Rome. The Roman poet Juvenal gave us a phrase that has echoed through 2,000 years of history. Panem et circenses, bread and circuses. He was writing a satire, critiquing the Roman people for selling their political birthright for a full belly and a good show. But look at it from the perspective of the emperor. The empire was vast, it was corrupt, it was teeming with inequality. How do you prevent a revolt? You cannot kill everyone. Violence is expensive, and it breeds martyrs. Instead, you provide a spectacle, you build the Colosseum, you fill it with blood and sand and noise. You make the show so loud, so visceral, so overwhelming, that the citizen forgets he has no voice in the Senate. He forgets that the grain shipment is late. He forgets that his rights are eroding. He is too busy cheering for the gladiator. He is too busy watching the lion eat the criminal. The genius of the Roman system was the understanding that a distracted population is a docile population. If you can occupy the public imagination with triviality and violence, you do not need to censor them. They will censor themselves by simply not caring about anything else. But in the ancient world, distraction was episodic. The games did not last forever. The sun went down, the stadium emptied, the silence returned. The peasant went back to the field, the artisan back to the workshop. For the vast majority of human history, the default state of existence was quiet. It was slow. It was monotonous. Then came the first great shift, the Industrial Revolution. We think of industry in terms of steam engines and factories, but its most profound invention was the regimentation of time. We invented the clock, not just to tell time, but to synchronize labor. Attention became a commodity. It was something you sold to your employer for 10 or 12 hours a day. This created a stark binary: work and leisure, focus and distraction. Distraction became the reward for labor. You worked hard in the factory, and then you went to the music hall, you went to the pub, you sought escape, but the escape was still distinct from the rest of your life. You had to go to it. It was a destination. Then came the 20th century, and the second great shift, the broadcast era. Radio and television brought the spectacle into the home. This was a monumental change in the architecture of human consciousness. For the first time, you did not have to go to the circus. The circus came to your living room. The campfire was replaced by the blue glow of the cathode ray tube. Families stopped talking to each other and started staring in the same direction. Culture became synchronized. We all watched the same news, laughed at the same sitcoms, feared the same enemies. But even television had limits. It was a piece of furniture. It sat in the corner. You could walk away from it. It had an off button. And crucially, it was a one-way street. The television shouted at you, but it could not hear you. It could not watch you back. It did not know who you were. We are now living through the third great shift. And this one is not just a difference in degree. It is a difference in kind. We have moved from the broadcast era to the network era. We have moved from the entertainment economy to the surveillance economy. Distraction is no longer an event. It is no longer a destination. It is no longer a piece of furniture. Distraction is now infrastructure. It is the environment. It is the water we swim in. Consider the profound change in our relationship with the internet over the last 20 years. In the late 1990s, the internet was a place you visited. You sat down at a desk, you turned on a heavy beige machine, you listened to the screech of the modem connecting. You were going online. It was a conscious act, like going to the library or going to the store. And then, you finished your task, you turned the machine off, and you were offline. Today, those terms are meaningless. You never go online because you actually never go offline. You're always connected. The device is in your pocket, on your wrist, or lying on the pillow next to your head. The internet has become a layer of reality that sits on top of the physical world, inseparable from it. We do not enter the circus anymore. We live in the circus. We carry the circus with us into the bathroom, into the car, into the delivery room, into the funeral home. There's no space left that is sacred. There's no space left that is silent. And this shift in infrastructure has been driven by a shift in the business model. This is the key to understanding the war. In the era of television, the business model was simple. Advertisers paid for your attention. They bought a 30-second slot during Seinfeld or the Super Bowl in the hopes that you would buy their car or their beer. You were the audience. The product was the show. The customer was the advertiser. But in the modern attention economy, the equation has changed. You are not the audience anymore, and you are certainly not the customer. You are the resource. The goal of a platform like Facebook or TikTok or YouTube is not to entertain you. That is a byproduct. The goal is to extract data from you. Every second you hesitate over an image, every link you click, every video you watch to the end, every comment you type and then delete is all being recorded. It is fed into a massive predictive engine. Shoshana Zuboff calls this surveillance capitalism. The product they are selling is not the app. The product is a prediction of your future behavior. They are selling the certainty that if they show you this image at this time of day, you will buy that thing, or vote for that person, or believe that lie. To make those predictions accurate, they need data. And to get data, they need you to stay on the device. They need your eyes. This is why the architecture of modern technology is designed the way it is. It is not designed for utility. It is designed for addiction. Have you ever wondered why social media feeds are infinite? Why there's no page 2? Why videos autoplay the moment the previous one ends? This is called infinite scroll. It was invented by a design ethicist named Asa Raskin, who has since apologized for it. He compared it to a bottomless bowl of soup. If the bowl never empties, you never get the visual cue that you have eaten enough. You just keep eating. If the feed never ends, you never get the cue to stop. You don't have to make a decision to continue. You have to make a conscious, difficult decision to stop. The default setting is consumption. The path of least resistance is to keep looking. They have removed the stop cues from our lives, the chapter break, the commercial break, the closing credits. These were natural pause points where a human could say, okay, that's enough. I'll go to sleep now. Those cues are gone. The stream is endless. And because it is endless, we drown in it. This transformation from distraction as entertainment to distraction as infrastructure has fundamentally altered the power dynamic. The Roman emperor had to build a Colosseum and pay for lions. It was expensive. The modern emperor doesn't have to build anything. You buy the device yourself. You pay for the data plan. You voluntarily carry the tracking device. You create the content yourself. We are the gladiators, and we are the audience, and we are the lions, all at once. And the emperor is simply the algorithm, silently counting the coins as we tear each other apart for likes. But to truly understand the grip this system has on us, we have to go deeper than history. We have to look at the biology. Because the tech companies didn't just stumble upon these methods. They didn't just guess. They went to the labs, they studied the research, they hired the neuroscientists and the behavioral psychologists. They figured out how to pick the lock of the human brain. Let's talk about dopamine. It is a word that gets thrown around a lot in pop psychology, often quite incorrectly. We are told that dopamine is the pleasure chemical. We think it's what we feel when we eat a piece of chocolate or have an orgasm. But that isn't quite right. Dopamine is not the chemical of having, it is the chemical of wanting. It is the neurotransmitter of desire, of seeking, of anticipation. It is the fuel that drives the animal to hunt. When a wolf smells a deer, that is dopamine. When a monkey sees a flash of red fruit in the canopy, that is dopamine. It is the biological urge that says, pay attention, something good might be over there. Evolution designed this system to keep us alive. In a world of scarcity, you need a powerful drive to keep looking for food, for water, for mates. You need a chemical that rewards you for exploration. But what happens when you take a brain evolved for scarcity and drop it into an environment of infinite abundance? What happens is a short circuit. The modern smartphone is a precision-engineered dopamine pump, and it operates on a specific psychological principle that is devastatingly effective. It is called the variable reward schedule. This concept comes from the mid-20th century, from the laboratory of psychologist B.F. Skinner. Skinner was a behaviorist. He studied how to control the behavior of animals using rewards and punishments. He put pigeons in a box. In the box was a button. If the pigeon pecked the button, a pellet of food would come out. Skinner found something fascinating. If the pigeon pecked the button and got a pellet every single time, a fixed reward, the pigeon would only peck the button when it was hungry. Once it was full, it ignored the button. If the pigeon pecked the button and never got a pellet, it quickly learned the button was useless. It stopped pecking. But if the reward was random, if the pigeon pecked the button and sometimes got a pellet, and sometimes got nothing, and sometimes got a jackpot of 3 pellets, the pigeon lost its mind. It would peck the button incessantly. It would peck until it was exhausted. It would peck to the exclusion of everything else. Why? Because the uncertainty creates a spike in dopamine. The brain is trying to predict the pattern. Will I get it this time? No. Maybe this time. Yes. The anticipation of the reward is more addictive than the reward itself. Now look at your phone. Look at gambling. Your phone is the Skinner box, and you're the pigeon. Every time you see a red notification badge, that is a cue. You peck the button. You open the app. What will you find? Maybe nothing. Just a boring email from a retailer. No pellet. Maybe a text from your boss asking for a report. A negative pellet. But maybe it's a text from someone you have a crush on. There's the pellet. Maybe your photo got 50 likes. You hit the jackpot. Maybe there's a breaking news story that validates your political anger. Another pellet. You never know what you're going to get, and because you don't know, you cannot stop checking. That is not an accident. This is the design. The pull to refresh mechanism, that little elastic animation where you drag the screen down and it snaps back to load new posts, it's psychologically identical to pulling the lever on a slot machine in Las Vegas. It takes a moment of friction, a moment of anticipation, and then spin, 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 you have the result. We're walking around with slot machines in our pockets, playing the game from the moment we wake up until the moment we pass out. But the cost of this addiction is not just wasted time. The cost is the physical structure of your brain. We are inducing a state of continuous partial attention. We are training our brains to constantly scan the horizon for the next hit of novelty. We are teaching ourselves that the present moment is never enough, that the next swipe might hold the key. This constant switching from the email to the text to the tweet to the real world and back again creates a massive cognitive load. The brain is not a computer. It cannot multitask. When you think you're multitasking, you're actually just task switching rapidly. You're toggling back and forth. Every time you switch, there's a switch cost. It takes energy to reorient. It takes glucose. It takes time. Research suggests that if you are interrupted in the middle of a complex task, it takes an average of 23 minutes to get back to the same level of deep focus you had before the interruption. 23 minutes. Now, look at your day. How often do you go 23 minutes without looking at a screen? For many of us, the answer is never. We are living in a state of permanent cognitive fragmentation. We are shredding our attention span into confetti. We are losing the ability to read long books, to watch slow movies, to have complex, meandering conversations that don't have a point right away. We are becoming people of the snippet, people of the headline, people of the clip. And this degradation of our attention span makes us vulnerable because you cannot sustain focus. You cannot think deeply. And if you cannot think deeply, you cannot understand cause and effect. You cannot understand nuance. You become a creature of impulse. And creatures of impulse are very, very easy to control. But the manipulation goes deeper than just the dopamine. The system doesn't want you to keep clicking. It wants you to feel something. It wants to hijack your emotions. If you haven't done so already, make sure you follow us on Spotify, leave us a 5-star review to help the algorithm promote this content to more like-minded people like yourself. Thank you. We've talked about the chemistry of seeking the dopamine loop, but the system is not content with simply keeping you curious. Curiosity is a gentle emotion. It is easily satisfied. To keep you truly locked in, the system needs something stronger. It needs to bypass your rationality entirely. It needs to tap into the deepest, oldest, most reptilian parts of your brain. It needs the amygdala. The amygdala is the threat detection center of the brain. It is the alarm bell. When our ancestors heard a twig snap in the dark, the amygdala fired. It flooded the body with cortisol and adrenaline. It shut down digestion. It narrowed vision. It prepared the body for one of two things: fight or flight. In this state, nuanced thinking is impossible. You don't contemplate the philosophy of the twig snapping. You don't consider the perspective of the predator. You react and you survive. The algorithms that govern our lives have learned a very specific lesson. High arousal emotions drive engagement. What are high arousal emotions? Anger, fear, disgust, and outrage. What are low arousal emotions? Contentment, calm, and satisfaction, as well as nuance. If a video makes you feel calm, you might smile, you might feel good, but then you put your phone down, you go about your day, and you're satisfied. To an algorithm optimizing for time on a device, satisfaction is a failure state. A satisfied user leaves the app. But if a video makes you angry, if it shows you someone from the other tribe saying something stupid or hateful, if it shows you a threat to your children, your country, or your identity, you don't put the phone down. You stare. You read the comments. You type a furious reply. You share it with your friends saying, "Can you believe this?" And you're locked in. You're in a state of high arousal. The algorithm watches this behavior. It learns. It says, this human likes this thing that makes them angry. I'm going to give them more of that. This creates a feedback loop that is destroying our collective insanity. We are being force-fed a diet of digital cortisol. We are living in a state of chronic, low-level fight or flight. We wake up, check the news, threat, crisis, scandal. We check Twitter, argument, insult, mockery. We check Instagram, comparison, envy, inadequacy. We are bathing our brains in stress hormones from the moment we wake up until the moment we pass out. This has a psychological cost. It leads to inflammation, high blood pressure, sleep disorders, but the psychological cost is worse. When the amygdala is active, the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain responsible for logic, empathy, and long-term planning, goes offline. It is biologically difficult to be empathetic when you feel under attack. It is difficult to be rational when you're swimming in adrenaline. We are building a society of people who are biologically incapable of listening to one another because they are constantly in a state of neural defense. We think we are angry because the world is getting worse, but we must ask, is the world actually getting worse? Or is the lens through which we view it incentivized to only show us the worst? If you lived in a small village, you might see a fight once a year. You might hear about a tragedy once a decade. Today, you can watch 10 videos of people fighting in a grocery store before you finish your morning coffee. You can read about 5 different genocides before lunch. You can see the worst behavior of the worst people on earth, aggregated and delivered to your palm in a continuous stream. This distorts our perception of reality. It makes us believe that the world is more dangerous, more hostile, and more chaotic than it actually is. It makes us paranoid. It makes us cynical. And a paranoid, cynical population is a population that has lost its awareness. It has lost the ability to see the good, the boring, the normal, and the beautiful. It only sees the threat. This brings us to the next casualty of the war. When attention fragments, the self fragments. Who are you? It's a heavy question, but if we strip away the philosophy, identity is largely a narrative. It is a story you tell yourself about yourself. I am this kind of person. I believe these things. I came from this place. I'm going to that place. This narrative requires continuity. It requires a thread that connects your past to your present and your future. It requires reflection. To know who you are, you have to be able to hear your own thoughts. The digital environment acts as a solvent on this continuity. It dissolves the glue that holds the self together. Consider the structure of the feed. It's nonlinear. It's context-free. It's a chaotic jumble of unrelated information. For example, scroll 1, a video of a devastating earthquake in Turkey. It's a tragedy. Scroll 2, a recipe for avocado toast. Triviality. Scroll 3 is a friend's engagement photo. Celebration. Scroll 4, a celebrity scandal. Gossip. Scroll 5, an advertisement for therapy. Commerce. There's no pause between these items. There's no emotional transition. You are asked to feel grief, then hunger, then joy, then judgment, then insecurity, all within a span of 15 seconds. The human heart is not designed for this. We are not designed to switch emotional gears that quickly. So what do? We numb out. We stop feeling deeply because it's too exhausting. We develop a glazed over engagement. We skim the surface of emotion without ever diving in. And in this flattening of effect, everything becomes equal. The earthquake and the avocado toast occupy the same size rectangle on your screen. They are given the same visual weight. They are just content. When everything is content, nothing is real. Reality itself becomes performative. We begin to live our lives not to experience them, but to document them. The camera used to be a tool to capture memory. Now, the camera creates the event. We go to the concert to record the concert. We eat the meal to photograph the meal. We go on vacation to post the vacation. We stop asking, how does this feel? And start asking, how will this look? We become the directors of our own reality show, but we are also the audience, and we are also the critics. We outsource our self-esteem to the metrics of the machine. If I post a thought and it gets 0 likes, did I have the thought? Is it valid? If I post a selfie and it gets 100 likes, am I beautiful today? If I post and it gets 3 likes, am I ugly? We've handed the keys of our self-worth to an algorithm that doesn't know us, doesn't love us, and doesn't care if we exist, as long as we keep clicking. This externalization of identity creates a fragile self. We become hypersensitive to validation. We become terrified of judgment because we exist primarily as digital avatars. An attack on our avatar feels like a death threat. If someone disagrees with us online, it doesn't feel like a debate. It feels like an erasure. This is why online discourse is so vicious. We are not defending ideas, we are defending our existence. And in this defense, we lose our complexity. The digital world is binary. It's composed of ones and zeros. Like or dislike, follow or block, cancel or stan, left or right. But the human soul is not binary. It is analog. It's a spectrum. We're full of contradictions. We can be kind and cruel, smart and stupid, brave and fearful, all in the same day. We can hold 2 opposing ideas in our minds at once, but the algorithm cannot produce ambiguity. It needs to categorize you. It needs to put you in a bucket. This user is a liberal vegan gamer. This user is a conservative Christian trucker. It feeds you the content that reinforces that bucket. It builds a concrete wall around your identity. It hardens you. You begin to prune away the parts of yourself that don't fit the brand. You stop exploring ideas that might contradict your team. You stop asking questions. You become a caricature of yourself. We are voluntarily participating in the disintegration of our own nuance. We are flattening ourselves into 2D paper dolls so that we can fit through the slots of the digital machine. And perhaps the greatest loss in this fragmentation is the loss of solitude. I don't mean loneliness. Loneliness is the pain of being alone. Solitude is the glory of being alone. Solitude is the state where you are company for yourself. It is the state where you can process your experiences, where you can heal, where you can dream. The phone has killed solitude. We are never alone anymore. If you're standing in a line, you're on your phone. If you're on the toilet, you're on your phone. If you're in your bed, unable to sleep, you're on your phone. We have filled every crack and crevice of our day with noise. We've plugged every gap where silence used to live. And without silence, the self cannot grow. We remain stagnant. We remain reactive. We become driftwood, floating on a digital ocean, pushed around by waves we do not see and currents we do not understand. We are forgetting how to be. We only know how to update. We've spent a great deal of time looking inward. We've looked at the neurons firing in your brain. We've looked at the dopamine loops and the fracturing of your personal identity. But now, we must zoom out. We must look at the city. We must look at the nation. We must look at the civilization. What happens when an entire society loses the ability to focus? What happens when a population becomes chemically incapable of sustaining a train of thought for longer than the duration of a 15-second video? To understand the political reality of the 21st century, we have to look back at the prophecies of the 20th. There were 2 great dystopian visions that defined our understanding of authoritarianism. The first and the most famous was George Orwell's 1984. Orwell imagined control through pain. He imagined a boot stamping on a human face forever. He feared a state that would ban books. He feared a ministry of truth that would rewrite history. He feared the truth would be concealed from us. He feared a prison. The second vision came from Aldous Huxley in A Brave New World. Huxley imagined control through pleasure. He didn't fear the books would be banned. He feared that there would be no reason to ban a book, because there would be no one left who wanted to read one. He didn't fear that the truth would be concealed. He feared that the truth would be drowned in a sea of irrelevance. He feared a burlesque show. For decades, we looked for Orwell. We looked for the surveillance cameras on the corners, and we found them. We looked for the secret police. We looked for the censorship boards. But while we were looking for 1984, we walked backward into Brave New World. Sorry to interrupt your regularly scheduled podcast, but this episode is brought to you by the Broken Truth merch. Support the show. Wear the truth. Official Broken Truth podcast merch is live now. Links in the description. And since you've made it this far in the episode, comment hashtag Broken Truth and leave us a 5-star review on your favorite platform. Because when you speak up, the algorithm listens. And so does the world. Look around you. We do not live in a world where information is scarce. We do not live in a world where the government is desperately trying to hide the truth in a vault. We live in a world where the truth is available, but nobody can find it because it is buried under a mountain of garbage. This is the new mechanism of censorship. It is not censorship by suppression, it is censorship by noise. In the old world, if a dictator wanted to bury a story, they sent soldiers to seize the printing press. They burned the newspapers. It was a physical act of deletion. In the new world, if you want to bury a story, you don't delete it. You just release 10,000 other stories in the same hour. You flood the zone. You create cacophony. You mix the truth with lies, with half-truths, with conspiracy theories, with celebrity gossip, with cat videos, with outrage bait. You turn the fire hose on full blast. The result is that the citizen is not uninformed. The citizen is overly informed. They are bombarded with so much data that they cannot process any of it. They cannot distinguish the signal from the noise. When everything is breaking news, nothing is breaking news. When every scandal is framed as the end of the world, we lose the ability to gauge the severity of any actual threat. This creates a state of profound political apathy. We see the corruption. We see the ecological collapse. We see the injustice. It is right there on our screens in high definition, but we are too cognitively overwhelmed to do anything about it. We are doom scrolling. We look at the horror, we feel a spike of cortisol, we feel a moment of performative sadness, and then we swipe. We swipe to the next thing. The swipe is the ultimate act of resignation. It is the gesture that says, I see this and I can do nothing. This apathy is not an accident. It is not a necessary feature of the control system. A distracted population does not revolt. A distracted population does not organize. Organizing requires focus. It requires sustained attention. It requires the ability to sit in a room with other people and plan for the future. If you cannot plan for next week because you're addicted to the dopamine hit of right now, you cannot build a movement. But there's a second layer in this control. It is not just about making us passive. It's about making us fight the wrong enemy. Let's talk about polarization. We are told that our society is more divided than ever. We are told that the left and the right are locked in a death match for the soul of the culture. We are told that our neighbor, who votes differently than we do, is an existential threat to our way of life. The algorithms feed this narrative. They know that tribalism drives engagement. If I show you a video of your team winning, you feel good. If I show you a video of the enemy team winning, doing something stupid or evil, you feel angry. Both feelings keep you clicking. So the system sorts us, it radicalizes us, it pushes us into echo chambers where we only hear our own voices reflected back to us, amplified and distorted. But we must ask, who benefits from this horizontal hostility? As long as we are fighting each other in the comments section, we are not looking up. As long as the culture war is raging, the class war goes unnoticed. The culture war is a spectacle. It is a gladiatorial game. It keeps the energy of the population directed sideways at their fellow citizens. It burns off our revolutionary potential. In a million tiny explosions of digital rage, we scream at a stranger on Twitter, and we feel like we have done politics. We feel like we have struck a blow for the cause. But we haven't. We have generated ad revenue for a tech monopoly. The anger is real. The grievances are often legitimate. But the direction of the anger is engineered. The noise of the internet acts as a fog of war, preventing us from seeing the actual structures of power that govern our lives. The chaos is the point. The anxiety is the point. Consider the psychology of a population living in constant chaos. When people are overwhelmed, when they feel the world is spinning out of control, what do they crave? They do not crave complex policy analysis. They do not crave nuance. They do not crave democratic deliberation. They crave order. They crave a strong man. They crave a simple answer. It's their fault. Build a wall. Burn it down. An anxious, distracted population is the perfect breeding ground for authoritarianism. We are too tired to think, so we want someone who will do the thinking for us. We want a daddy figure to come and turn off the noise. And this is the greatest irony of the information age. We thought the internet would liberate us. We thought that giving everyone a voice would lead to a new Athenian democracy. We thought that access to all human knowledge would make us wise. Instead, we built a Tower of Babel. We built a machine that amplifies our most primal instincts and drowns out our highest reason. We've created a society that is technically connected, but spiritually and politically atomized. We are alone together, staring at our screens, waiting for the next notification, while the world burns around us. And the people in charge, they are counting on us staying distracted. They're banking on it. They know that as long as we are debating the color of a dress or the latest celebrity slap, we are not debating the tax code. We're not debating the surveillance state. We're not debating the ownership of the future. The silence that is required for democracy, the silence in which we listen to one another, the silence in which we weigh the evidence has been sold. It has been auctioned off to the highest bidder. And we are left with the noise. So we've seen the mechanism, we've seen the trap, but we need to talk about the cost. And I don't mean the political cost anymore. I mean the human cost. What happens to the human soul when it is subjected to this level of fragmentation for a decade, for a lifetime? We're beginning to see the symptoms. We treat them as medical issues or mental health crises. And they are. But they are also philosophical crisis. We are witnessing the death of deep time. Deep time is the sense of connection to the ancestors and the descendants. It is the feeling of being part of a long, slow river of human experience. The digital world lives in shallow time. There's only now. The post from 10 minutes ago is old news. The post from yesterday is ancient history. The future extends only as far as the next refresh. We live in shallow time. When we live in shallow time, we lose our sense of meaning. Meaning requires context. It requires a story, and stories take time to unfold. If you rip the pages out of a novel and shuffle them, and then read them one sentence at a time in random order, you still have all the words. You have all the information, but you've lost the story and lost its meaning. That is our lives today. We have all the words, but we've lost the story. We feel this as a gnawing emptiness, a sense of, is this it? We see rising states of nihilism, especially in the young. Why plan for a future that feels like a hallucination? Why build a legacy when the attention span of the world is 3 seconds? We see a loss of the ability to grapple with morality. Death is the ultimate silence. It is the ultimate stop. In a culture of endless noise and infinite scroll, death becomes a glitch. It becomes something we cannot compute. We hide it, we filter it, we distract ourselves from it until the very end. But the ancients knew that memento mori, the remembrance of death, was the key to living a good life. It gives us perspective. It tells us what matters. When we lose that perspective, we start to care about things that do not matter. We spend our lives chasing digital ghosts. We are losing the capacity for deep reading and deep listening. To read a complex book, you must submit to the author's pace. You must slow down. You must surrender your ego. You must enter another mind. This is an act of empathy. To listen to a symphony or a long conversation, you must have patience. You must wait for the resolution. When we lose these capacities, we become shallow people. We become incapable of grappling with the complexity of the human condition. We want the tweet-sized version of love. We want the TikTok version of grief. We are flattening the human experience into a 9:16 aspect ratio. And perhaps the most tragic loss is the loss of the inner citadel. The inner citadel was the Stoic concept of the private mind, the place inside you that no tyrant could breach, that no pain could touch. It was the place of your ultimate freedom. But the modern surveillance state, coupled with the attention economy, has breached the citadel. There's no privacy left, not even in your own head. The algorithm predicts your thoughts before you think them. The notification interrupts your prayer. The screen mediates your relationship with your child. We have been colonized. The empire has not just conquered the land, it has conquered the imagination. This is the state of play. This is the gravity of the situation. It sounds hopeless. It sounds like the war is already lost, but it isn't. Because there's one thing the machine cannot replicate. There's one thing the algorithm cannot predict. There's one thing that remains stubbornly, undeniably human. And that is the power of the conscious choice. The machine relies on your automaticity. It relies on you being a pigeon pecking the button. But you're not a pigeon. You're a human being. You have the capacity to stop. You have the capacity to say no. And in that no, the revolution begins. We've walked through the valley of the shadow. We've looked at the cage, the bars, the lock, and the guard. It's a terrifying picture. It's easy to look at the scale of the surveillance economy and feel small. It's easy to feel that resistance is futile. But despair is just another form of distraction. Despair says, nothing matters, so I might as well keep scrolling. We are not here to despair. We're here to fight. The question is, how? How do you fight a war that is taking place in your own neural pathways? How do you rebel against an enemy that gives you exactly what you think you want? The answer is not to retreat to a cabin in the woods. The answer is not to smash the phone with a hammer. We cannot uninvent the internet. We cannot opt out of the modern world completely. Not if we want to participate in society, hold a job, or stay connected to our families. To demand total abstinence is to set ourselves up for failure. We are not monks. We are citizens of the 21st century. The answer lies in a different concept. It lies in sovereignty. Sovereignty means supreme power authority. In the context of the mind, it means that you are the final arbiter of where your attention goes. It means you're not a passenger, you're the driver. Reclaiming sovereignty is not a one-time decision. It's a practice. It is a daily, hourly form of resistance. And like any resistance movement, it requires tactics. The first tactic is the reintroduction of friction. Silicon Valley is obsessed with frictionless design. They want the time between I want and I have to be zero. They want you to buy with one click. They want the video to play before you ask for it. They want the next episode to start before the credits end. Friction is the enemy of their business model. Therefore, friction is the ally of your freedom. We must voluntarily bind walls where they have torn them down. We must make the unconscious conscious. We must break the twitch. How do we do this? We start with the physical environment. If you're trying to quit drinking, you do not keep a bottle of vodka on your nightstand. Yet, we sleep with our addiction 2 feet from our heads. The first, most radical act you can take is to banish the device from the bedroom. Buy an alarm clock, a real one. One that does only one thing, tells the time. Let the bedroom be a sanctuary. Let the first thing you see in the morning be the light in the window, or the face of your partner, or the ceiling. Anything but the feed. When you wake up, your brain is in a delicate state. It's transitioning the theta waves of sleep to the alpha and beta waves of alertness. If you immediately blast it with the cortisol of the news, the dopamine of social media, you've lost the day before you've even gotten out of bed. You've surrendered your morning to the algorithm. Reclaiming the morning is the first territory we win back. Next, we look at the device itself. We must strip it of its glamour. Turn off all non-human notifications. Ask yourself, does this app need to interrupt my life? Does a game need to tell me to play it? Does a news app need to scream at me? The answer to all of those is no. If a human being, a friend, a mother, a child, is trying to reach you, let the phone ring. For everything else, silence it. You check it on your schedule, not the machine's. You become the puller, not the pushed. Then, consider the visual trigger. Go into your settings and turn your screen to grayscale. Remove the color. This sounds trivial, but it's profound. The red of the badge, the bright pink of the Instagram icon, these are biological triggers. They are fruit in the canopy. When you turn the screen black and white, the phone stops looking like a toy and starts looking like a tool. It becomes utilitarian. The dopamine hit evaporates. You will find yourself looking at it, feeling a strange lack of interest in putting it down. You have added friction. You've broken the spell. The second tactic is the embrace of boredom. We treat boredom like a disease. We treat it like physical pain. We have a 3-second tolerance for waiting. If the elevator takes too long, we pull out the phone. If the microwave's running, we pull out the phone. We must relearn the art of doing nothing. This is the sit and stare protocol. Try this. Sit in a chair for 15 minutes. No device, no book, no music, no meditation technique. Just sit. Watch what happens. At first, it will be fine. Then around minute 3, you'll feel the itch. Your hand will phantom twitch toward your pocket. You'll feel a rising anxiety. I should be doing something. I'm wasting time. What if I missed a text? This is the withdrawal. This is the brain crying out for its pacifier. Do not scratch the itch. Let it rise, let it scream, and then watch it pass. Because it will pass, and on the other side of that boredom is a clarity you haven't felt in years. Boredom is the threshold to the interior life. When the brain realizes it isn't getting any external input, it switches gears. It turns inward. It starts to process old memories. It starts to connect disparate ideas. It starts to dream. Creativity does not happen in the scroll. Creativity happens in the shower. It happens on the long walk. It happens in the stare out the window. It happens in the spaces between the inputs. If you eliminate the empty space, you eliminate the art. You eliminate the insight. We must reclaim the right to be bored. We must reclaim the in-between moments of our lives. The waiting in line, the commute, the walk to the store. Do not plug these holes with noise. Leave them open. Let the wind blow through them. The third act is deep work and single tasking. The modern world tells us that multitasking is a skill. That's a lie. Multitasking is just doing several things poorly at the same time. We must retrain our brains for depth. This means picking one thing, reading a book, writing a report, washing the dishes, and doing only that thing. When you read, leave the phone in the other room. Commit to 20 pages. When you watch a movie, put the phone in a drawer. Watch the movie. When you eat dinner, look at your food. Look at the people you're eating with. This will feel difficult at first. Your attention span has atrophied. It is a weak muscle. You will try to read, and your eyes will slide off the page after 2 paragraphs. You'll feel the urge to check. That is the resistance training. Every time you feel the urge to check and you don't, you're doing a rep. You're strengthening the muscle of focus, and slowly, over weeks and months, the capacity returns. You will find you can read for an hour. You will find you can listen to a friend without glazing at your wrist. You will find that the world becomes richer, deeper, and more vibrant because you're actually there to witness it. This is not about productivity. This is not about getting more done so you can be a better worker bee for the economy. This is about dignity. It is about the dignity of inhabiting your own life. It is about the respect you owe to people around you. When you look at your phone while someone is talking to you, you're saying, this digital simulation is more important than your physical reality. We must reverse that valuation. We must decide that the real world, the world of flesh and light and air and soil, is the primary world, and the screen is just a tool we use to navigate it, not a place we live. This is the practice: friction, boredom, focus. It is simple, but is not easy. It is a war of attrition. You will fail. You will relapse. You will find yourself doom scrolling at 2 a.m. That's okay. The goal is not perfection. The goal is consciousness. The goal is to notice when you've fallen asleep and to wake yourself up again. And every time you wake up, every time you put the phone down and look at the sky, you strike a blow against the empire. You declare your independence. We've discussed the tactics of defense. We've talked about grayscale screens and alarm clocks. These are the walls we build to keep the invader out. But the walls are not enough. A fortress is useless if there's nothing valuable inside to protect. Once you've cleared your space, once you've created the silence, what do you do with it? What grows in the garden when you stop poisoning the soil? We must talk about the reconstruction of the human interior. We must talk about the things we've lost and how to get them back. The first thing we must recover is the ability to suffer well. This is a strange phrase to modern ears. Our entire culture is predicated on the avoidance of suffering. We view pain as a technical error. We view sadness as a malfunction. We view boredom as a sin. The promise of the digital age is that you never have to feel anything unpleasant ever again. If you feel lonely, swipe. If you feel anxious, scroll. If you feel the heavy, dull weight of grief, watch a movie. We've created a civilization of anesthesia, but anesthesia does not heal the wound. It only silences the signal. Suffering, in its natural form, is data. It is information. Grief tells you what you loved. Loneliness tells you that you need community. Regret tells you you violated your own values. Boredom tells you that your mind is hungry for creation. When we distract ourselves, the moment a negative emotion arises, we are deleting the data before we can read it. We are throwing away the map. By refusing to sit with our pain, we become strangers to ourselves. We become brittle. We accumulate a backlog of unprocessed emotion that sits in the basement of our psyche, rotting. This is why we are seeing such explosive rates of anxiety. It is the pressure building up behind the dam of distraction. To reclaim awareness, we must learn to suffer well. This does not mean masochism. It does not mean seeking out pain. It means when pain arrives, we don't run. We sit with it. We treat it with hospitality. When you feel the pain of loneliness on a Friday night, do not reach for the phone. Sit on the couch. Feel the texture of the loneliness. Where is it in your body? Is it in your chest? Is it in your throat? What's it saying? If you listen to it, it might tell you to call a friend. Not to text, but to call. It might tell you to go outside. It might tell you you are dissatisfied with your current relationships. If you numb it, you learn nothing. If you listen to it, you'll grow. The alchemists believe that you had to burn the lead to get the gold. The psychological lead is your suffering. The gold is wisdom. But the transformation requires the heat of attention. If you turn away the heat, the lead stays lead. We must become people who can weather the storm of our emotions without needing a digital umbrella. The second thing we must recover is the inner voice. We used to have a constant internal monologue. We narrated our lives to ourselves. We debated with ourselves. We rehearsed conversations. We daydreamed. This inner voice is the mechanism of selfhood. It is how we make sense of the world. It is how we form opinions that are actually ours. But today, the inner voice is being drowned out. If you're listening to a podcast while you commute, and listening to music while you work, and watching YouTube while you eat, and reading tweets while you fall asleep, when do you speak? We've replaced our internal monologue with external dialogue. We've replaced our thoughts with other people's content. We are becoming ventriloquists, dummies for the algorithm. We open our mouths, and the opinions of a pundit come out. We feel an emotion, and it is the manufactured outrage of a viral video. Recovering the inner voice requires silence, real silence. It requires walking without headphones. It requires driving in a quiet car. It requires doing the dishes with only the sound of water. In that silence, at first, you'll hear nothing but the echo of the noise. You'll hear fragments of songs, headlines, worries. But if you wait, if you persist, the sediment will settle, the water will clear, and you will hear a quiet voice. It might sound tentative at first. It might be asking a question. Am I happy? Do I actually believe that? What do I want to build? That voice is you. It is the only thing that is truly you, and it's been waiting for you to shut up long enough to listen. To reclaim that voice is to reclaim your sovereignty. A person with a strong inner voice cannot be easily brainwashed. They cannot be easily stampeded. They have a compass. The third thing we must recover is deep connection. Social media promised us connection. It promised us a global village. But what it gave us was connectivity, not connection. There's a difference. Connectivity is technical. It's the ability to send a packet of data from point A to B. Connection is biological. It's emotional. It's spiritual. Connection requires presence. It requires the synchronization of nervous systems. When you're in a room with someone, looking into their eyes, hearing the tremor in their voice, smelling their scent, your bodies are communicating in a language that is millions of years old. You are co-regulating. You're exchanging energy. Digital communication strips away 90% of the signal. It removes the tone, the body language, the pheromones, and the timing. It leaves only the text. It is the desiccated dehydration version of human contact. And because it is so thin, it leaves us angry. We can exchange 10,000 texts and still feel entirely lonely. The war on awareness has tricked us into trading the meal for the menu. We look at pictures of friends instead of seeing friends. We look at like counts instead of counting on people. To recover meaning, we must prioritize the analog. We must be radical in our insistence on physical presence. Do not text if you can call. Do not call if you can meet. Do not Zoom if you can be in the room. When you're with someone, be with them. There's a specific kind of insult that occurs when you're talking to someone and they glance at their phone. It's a subtle rejection. It says you're less interesting than a potential notification. We must stop doing this. We must bring the sacredness back to the encounter. This brings us to the concept of deep time. The digital world operates in shallow time. Everything is urgent. Everything is ephemeral. The news cycle moves so fast that a tragedy on Monday is a meme on Tuesday and forgotten by Wednesday. We are living in a perpetual, hyper-accelerated present. This erodes our ability to think generationally. It erodes our ability to build things that last. Cathedrals were built by people who knew they would never see the roof. They laid the foundation for their grandchildren. They lived in deep time. We live in a time of the refresh state. Recovering awareness means stepping out of the stream. It means anchoring yourself in things that do not change every second. Read old books, read books by people who have been dead for thousands of years. Their problems were your problems. Their wisdom is not dependent on the latest software update. Spend time in nature. The tree does not care about the election. The mountains do not care about your follower count. The ocean operates on a rhythm that ignores the algorithm. Make things with your hands: woodworking, gardening, cooking, painting. These activities force you to slow the speed of material. You cannot rush the rising of bread. You cannot rush the growth of the tomato. These practices anchor us. They remind us that we are biological creatures, living on a planet, not disembodied intellects floating in a cloud of data. They remind us that we are mortal. And this is the final essential recovery, the awareness of death. The screen is a machine of immortality. It never ages, it never dies. The profiles of dead people look exactly the same as the profiles of the living. It creates an illusion of a permanent, static now. But you are dying. Every second you spend staring at a pixel is a second you will never get back. This is not a morbid thought. It's a clarifying thought. Seneca said, "We are not given a short life, but we make it short. And we are not ill-supplied, but wasteful of it." When you become aware of your own mortality, the cost of distraction becomes unbearable. You realize you're not just killing time, you're killing life. You're killing the only life you will ever have. This realization is the fuel for the revolution. It is the fire that burns through the apathy. When you truly understand that your time is finite, you become stingy with it. You stop giving it away to people who don't matter and machines that don't care. You start hoarding it for things that are real. You start to live with intention, and intention is the opposite of distraction. We've spoken of the interior, we've spoken of the silence, the boredom, and the recovery of the inner voice. These are the foundations, but a foundation is not a house. You cannot live in a foundation, you must build upon it. How do we construct a life that is resistant to the pull of the attention economy? How do we build an architecture of existence that makes focus the default setting, rather than a constant, exhausting struggle? We must move beyond digital detoxes and screen-free Sundays. These are temporary measures. They are diets. And like all restrictive diets, they eventually fail because they do not change the underlying relationship with the nourishment. We need a complete restructuring of our information environment. We need to talk about the information diet. For the last 20 years, we have been binge eating an all-you-can-eat buffet of junk data. We've been stuffing ourselves with high fructose information syrup. What is junk info? It is information that triggers a high emotional response but contains low nutritional value. It is Celebrity Feud. It is the hot take. It's the 20-second clip of a politician stumbling. It creates a spike in blood sugar, interest, outrage, laughter, followed by a crash of emptiness. What is nutritious information? Well, it's dense, it's complex, it requires chewing. It's a 3-hour conversation, it's a textbook on history, it's a poem, a scientific paper. Nutritious information does not just fill you up, it builds muscle, it builds the structure of your mind. It gives you new mental models to understand the world. If you eat junk food all day, your body becomes sick. If you eat junk data all day, your mind becomes sick. It becomes inflamed, sluggish, and incapable of exertion. We must become ruthless curators of what enter our eyes. This means unfollowing, unsubscribing. It means looking at your feed and asking, does this account matter to me? Is it making me smarter or just angrier? Does this person inspire me or just make me feel inadequate? If the answer is negative, cut the cord. You must aggressively prune the garden of your intention. If you do not prune it, the weeds will choke the flowers. This is not censorship, it's hygiene. You would not drink water from a sewer. Why do you let the sewer flow into your mind? Once we've cleansed the diet, we must introduce the next pillar of architecture, voluntary discomfort. The digital world is sold to us on the premise of comfort. It is the promise of frictionless ease. You never have to wait. You never have to be bored. You never have to get lost. You never have to be cold. But humans were not evolved for comfort. We were evolved for struggle. We were evolved to hunt, to climb, to build, and to endure. When we remove all physical friction from our lives, our threshold for discomfort drops to zero. We become soft, and a soft person is easily manipulated. If you cannot handle the minor discomfort of being bored for 5 minutes, how will you handle the major discomfort of standing up for a difficult truth? We must reintroduce physical reality into our lives, and reality is often uncomfortable. This is why practices like lifting heavy weights or running long distances or taking cold showers or fasting are so powerful in the age of distraction. They are anchors. When you are under a heavy barbell, you cannot be thinking about Twitter. You are entirely present, or you'll be crushed. When you're freezing in winter, you cannot be worrying about your email. Your biology forces you into the now. These practices reset our dopamine baseline. They remind us that we are bodies. They teach us that we can endure discomfort and survive. And when you learn that you can survive the cold, or the weight, or the hunger, you realize you can survive the silence. You can survive the lack of a like. You can build a callus over your soul. Not a callus that makes you unfeeling, but a callus that makes you tough. This toughness is the armor you need to walk through the digital bazaar without buying anything. The third pillar is creation over consumption. There are two models of being in the world, consumer and the creator. The consumer is passive. The consumer sits with their mouth open waiting to be fed. The consumer asks, what is new? What will entertain me? The creator is active. The creator steps into the void and makes something exist that did not exist before. The creator asks, what is true? What can I build? The ultimate antidote to distraction is creation. You cannot create and consume at the same time. You cannot write a novel and scroll TikTok simultaneously. You cannot build a table and watch Netflix simultaneously. The act of creation demands exclusive rights to your attention. When you're in the flow of making, whether it's coding, cooking, writing, or gardening, you enter a state of deep, protected focus. Time falls away, the ego falls away, the anxiety falls away. This is the state of flow, and flow is the opposite of fragmentation. In flow, the self is integrated. In the scroll, the self is disintegrated. We must shift the balance of our lives from 90% consumption and 10% to creation to 50-50, or even better. We must become people who make things. It doesn't matter if what you make is good. It doesn't matter if you can sell it. What matters is the act of making, the act of imposing your will upon the chaos and creating order. When you make something, you reclaim your agency. You're no longer a resource for the platform. You are a god in your own small universe. The final pillar of this new architecture is perhaps the hardest. It is the social courage to be disconnected. We are social animals. We are terrified of exclusion. The fear of missing out, FOMO, is not just a catchy acronym. It's the primal evolutionary fear. To miss out meant to be left behind the tribe, which meant death. The machine leverages this fear against us. It tells us that if we are not online, we do not exist. If we do not know the latest meme, we're irrelevant. To reclaim your life, you must be willing to be that weird one. You must be willing to be the person who doesn't have the app. You must be willing to be the person who leaves the phone in the car at dinner. You must be willing to say, I didn't see that video. You must be willing to miss out. JOMO, the joy of missing out. There's a profound freedom in not knowing. There's a freedom in not being up to date. There's a freedom in letting the river of trivia flow past you without dipping your cup into it. But this requires courage. People will get annoyed with you. They will say you're difficult to reach. They will mock you for being a Luddite. Let them. You're not being difficult. You're being protective. You're guarding the gates of your mind. And here's the secret. When you do this, you become a mirror. When you sit at a table and don't pull out your phone, you make everyone else at the table conscious of the fact that they're pulling out theirs. Your presence exposes their absence. This makes people uncomfortable, but it also inspires them. We are all looking for permission to stop. We are all exhausted. We're all looking for someone to break the pact of mutual distraction. Be that person. Be the glitch in the matrix. Be the one who looks people in the eye. Be the one who listens. By reclaiming your own awareness, you create a gravity well of presence. You pull other people out of the simulation and back into reality. You become a lighthouse in the fog. This is the architecture of the resistance. A clean diet for the mind, a body tempered by voluntary discomfort, a life centered on creation, and the courage to stand apart from the crowd. It's a hard life. It's harder than the life of the scroller. It requires discipline. It requires effort. But it's a real life. It's a life that belongs to you. And at the end of the days, when you look back on your time, you'll not remember the videos you watched. You will not remember the arguments you read. You will remember the things you built. You will remember the faces you loved. You will remember the moments of silence when you felt truly and deeply what it meant to be alive. We've arrived at the end of the line. We've dissected the history of distraction. We've opened up the hood of the machine and looked at the gears, the dopamine loops, the variable rewards, the emotional hijacking. We've looked at the wreckage of our own attention spans and the fragmentation of our societies. It's a dark picture, and I wish I could tell you the worst is over. I wish I could tell you that we've reached the peak of distraction, and the pendulum is about to swing back on its own. But I can't lie to you. We are standing at a precipice. The technology we have discussed tonight, the smartphone, the algorithm, the feed, this is just the opening act. It's the primitive, clunky version of what's coming next. We're moving rapidly toward a world of total immersion, virtual reality, augmented reality, the metaverse, neural interfaces. The goal of the next generation of technology is not to distract you from reality, it is to replace reality. The goal is to create a digital layer so compelling, so frictionless, so perfectly tailored to your specific desires and biases that you will never want to leave. Why deal with the messiness of the real world, the bad weather, the awkward conversations, the physical decay, when you can live in a world where you're always beautiful, always right, and always entertained? The temptation to opt out of existence will become overwhelming. The siren song of simulation will be deafening. The gap between the mind and the machine is closing. Soon, there will be no gap. So where does that leave us? If the enemy is getting stronger, faster, and smarter, how can we possibly win? We win by remembering what we are. The machine is brilliant. It's fast. It can process more data in a second than you can in a lifetime. It can write poetry. It can paint pictures. It can beat you at chess. But there's one thing the machine cannot do. There's one frontier it cannot cross. It cannot witness. A camera can record an image, but it cannot see. A microphone can record a sound, but it cannot listen. An algorithm could predict a preference, but it cannot care. Awareness, pure, conscious, felt awareness, is the exclusive province of the biological soul. It is the spark that separates the person from the program. The machine simulates. You are. And this is where the revolution begins. It is not a loud revolution. It will not be televised because it cannot be televised. It does not have a red flag. It does not have a leader. It does not have a manifesto that you can retweet. It is a quiet revolution. It is a revolution of the private life. It is a revolution of the pause. It happens in the invisible moments. It happens when you're standing on a street corner, waiting for the light to change. The urge to pull out your phone rises in your chest like a reflex. You feel the itch, but you don't do it. Instead, you look up. You look at the sky. You look at the way the light hits the brick of the building across the street. You look at the face of the stranger standing next to you, the lines around their eyes, the slump of their shoulders, the humanity of them. In that moment, you've broken the circuit. You've refused to be a node in the network. You've chosen to be a witness to the world. This is an act of rebellion. It happens when you are standing with a friend who is grieving. The conversation is heavy. There's an awkward silence. The phone buzzes in your pocket. The machine is calling you. It is offering you an escape. It is offering you a cat video. It's offering you relief from the pain of empathy. But you don't answer. You stay in the silence. You stay in the discomfort. You look at your friend in the eye and say, I am here. This is an act of rebellion. It happens when you finish your work for the day. The screen goes dark. The void opens up. The fear of boredom creeps in. The machine offers you thousands of hours of content to fill that void. But you don't take it. You walk out the door. You walk into the woods or the city streets. You listen to your own footsteps. You let your mind wander off the leash. You let yourself remember who you were before the internet told you who to be. This is an act of rebellion. These moments may seem small. They may seem insignificant against the trillion-dollar infrastructure of the attention economy, but they are everything. Because a life is made of moments. And if you reclaim the moments, you reclaim life. We are fighting for the right to be the protagonists of our own stories. We're fighting for the right to define what is true and what is meaningful without an algorithm whispering the answer in our ear. We are fighting for the inner citadel. The walls of that citadel have been breached. The enemy is inside the gates. They are in our living rooms, in our bedrooms, and in our pockets. But they have not taken the keep. They have not taken the final room. There is still a place inside you that is still silent. There's a place inside you that is still free. There's a place inside you that knows looking at a picture of a sunset is not the same as feeling the warmth of the sun on your face. Go to that place, fortify it, defend it. Do not let the light go out. The world is waiting for you, not the digital world, the real world. The world of dust and wind and skin and blood. The world that hurts and heals and dies and is born again. It is messy. It is slow. It is often boring. But it is the only place where you can actually live. The cage is open. It always has been. We've just been too distracted to see the door. Stop looking at the shadows. Turn around. Face the fire. Walk out of the cave. The silence is yours. The attention is yours. The life is yours. Take it back. Start now. And before you exit this episode, make sure you're following us on Spotify. Leave us a 5-star review so you can share this content with more viewers like yourself. Don't go and smash your phone, please. Don't go and completely tear apart your life to try to put the pieces together. The unfortunate reality of the situation is you're not going to get rid of technology at all. So do things step by step. Do with what's in your control. What you have the choice to do is make your phone black and white. What you have the choice to do is turn off your notifications. What you have the choice to do is set your phone in the other room. So do things one step at a time to take it back. Thanks for watching this episode. Stay tuned for next time. Leave your thoughts below.
In a world built on hidden histories and half-truths, we've only just begun to peel back the layers. Because what you've heard tonight was never meant to be known. But you were meant to find it. If you're ready to go deeper, leave us a review, comment your thoughts, share this episode, and step inside the archives. Join the inner circle, where the real evidence is kept. This is the broken truth, because the truth isn't whole, it's broken.